Hi, my name is Nikit, and today we're going to talk about Don't Starve Together. I love this game. I play it all the time. If you've never heard of it, it's a survival indie game where literally every single thing in the world tries to kill you all the time. But if you're me, you ignore that and play it like The Sims on hard mode. I really like this game. It is so good for my aggressively hyperactive little brain. Me and my wife actually have a server together, and I think we've played for... How old is that world, actually? Oh god, I need to get a grip. You don't worry about that. All you need to know is that this game has a lot of characters that you can choose to play as, each with their own aesthetic and gimmick. I play as Willow in Wickerbottom because I love unhinged women, and I decided that I want to make a new one, so that's what we're going to do today. Each character in the game has a few things in common. A name that starts with a W, a unique looking sprite that fits in with the art style of the game, a little bit of lore, and a gimmick with perks and disadvantages. So we'll start with the name. Meet Weather. W-E-T-H-E-R Weather. I don't know why names in this game all start with a W, but it's a cute quirk, so it's a tradition I wanted to keep. Weather's name is, of course, a pun, because this character is going to be a meteorologist. I was bouncing back and forth between ideas for the concept art. I was originally thinking of more of a Zeus-type figure because I want this character to have a lot of wind and storm-related gimmicks, but it felt a little out of step with the game's core aesthetic. Most of the characters in the game have a slightly old-timey feel to them, with the canon lore being that they were pulled out of the normal timeline into this horrific world thing called the Constant where the game happens. And they were pulled out of that timeline by a shadowy figure named Maxwell, who has been stuck here for a long time. You know he's the antagonist because his name starts with an M. Ooh. So the concept for my guy, Weather, is that he was an old-timey meteorologist whose equipment started picking up readings from the strange moonstorms that happen in the late-game content of Don't Starve Together. No one else was picking up these readings, so nobody believed him. Weather went mad, searching, trying to prove that his findings were real. He definitely lost a few screws along the way, but eventually he succeeded in creating a machine that could pass through a storm into the Constant. The only thing he can't figure out how to do is find his way back. Also, don't worry, this is not some weird Jewish people control the weather conspiracy thing, because that is idiotic anti-Semitic garbage. Don't bring that to my page. And yes, I am aware that he's very similar aesthetically to Wagstaff. I literally didn't realize until I was halfway through his concept art, and then I couldn't be bothered to start over. So maybe they're brothers, and Weather was tracking the moonstorms to get to him. I don't know. That could be kind of fun. In terms of gameplay, I think Weather would spawn into the Constant with 2 blueprints, which are items that characters can interact with to learn a new crafting recipe in the game. Lots of characters spawn in with their items, but I think what would be unique about Weather in this case is that he can't seem to read the blueprints that he spawned in with. All that he can tell is the title, which is that one blueprint is for something called the Weather Machine, and the other is for something called a Weather Mobile. But for some reason, he just can't read them. Weather's gimmick is all about the weather, and specifically wind and storms. I think he should get 2 key crafting recipes early on. The first is a one-time use equivalent of the luxury fan that you can craft in the game. It would do exactly the same thing, but break after a single use and be craftable with easier to access materials like twigs and papyrus. Getting this recipe early on is very strong for the summer, so I wanted to nerf it enough not to invalidate the luxury fan, because it's a cool item. But it's still useful to be able to craft something like this with such accessible material costs, so I think it would be a decent balance between which one you invest in making. I hate my whole base burning down in the summer. I can't emphasize enough that this game hates you and is trying to kill you all the time, and it is a love-hate relationship, and I will play any character that makes the hell that is summer wildfires end earlier. The follow-up to this recipe would be a luxury fan structure. Using 4 luxury fans, some rope, and boards, Weather can make a placeable pinwheel structure that would provide the constant effect of a luxury fan in one small static radius. Infinite cooling is very strong in this game. I don't think there is another source of infinite cooling in the game other than the structure where the moon event happens, but you can't move that. So it's important that this structure is 1, also immovable, and 2, only affects a very small area and has a pretty intense crafting cost to offset that huge benefit. And finally, Weather can make that structure portable and more durable by crafting the industrial fan. For some gears, scrap, and boards, Weather would be able to create a giant metal fan with wooden propellers to blow the heat away. It would be carryable with difficulty, like a big crop or the suspicious marble pieces, and it would have all of the effects of the windmill structure plus the added benefit of buffeting hostile mobs in the way that a sandstorm does in the desert, so drastically reducing their speed. I like to imagine this being used for all sorts of messed up farms, so I could see that it would need potentially to have a bigger drawback, like maybe having a health bar like Winona's gadgets do, or needing power to function, maybe in the form of electricity. And speaking of electricity, Weather's non-fan early craft would be a new take on the lightning rod. Rather than being a permanent structure, Weather can craft a key kite. I don't know, I'll work on the name. But essentially, it's an equipable item in the hand slot, and while equipped, Weather becomes a walking lightning rod. It's supposed to be a reference to Ben Franklin's historic experiment. When Weather is struck by lightning, he takes a hefty chunk of damage and his sanity meter flips to be at full enlightenment. And I think I'm going to call this Weather's electrified state, and his sprite would change slightly to indicate that he's experiencing new statuses. While electrified, Weather discovers a few things. First, as a result of his enlightenment being full, he is absolutely plagued by gestalts, whether he's on the lunar island or not. I have never found gestalts to be as intimidating as their shadow counterparts, so maybe they could also do some shock damage to Weather, or maybe if he falls asleep, which is what the gestalts try to get you to do, his electrified state would end immediately. Secondly, his neurons are firing at incredible rates. While he's certainly feeling a bit crazed, in this mode, Weather can craft anything that he's crafted before at only 50% of the crafting cost and at the cost of giving up 20 enlightenment. This is meant to mimic a mad scientist's rush of inventive genius. He is able to craft at lightning speed and with minimal materials, but he's using his enlightened sanity state to do so. This is really strong, to be fair. It's equivalent to the construction amulet, which is an incredibly powerful item late game, so it's possible to tweak the enlightenment number to make it, a little more fair. But finally, in his enlightened state, Weather can finally learn those blueprints that he entered the constant with. The Weather machine turns out to be either a tower-like structure or a hat. I haven't made up my mind. Either way, Weather would be able to use it to affect the weather. In structure form, it would probably be something like Wickerbottom's Rain Book, being able to toggle different weather effects on and off at a certain cost, perhaps requiring enlightenment buffs or drains to use. But in hat form, maybe it would be an area of effect weapon with different types of damage surrounding him based on the season it invokes. Frog rain, lightning storms, sandstorms, and snow summoned like in a whirlwind that would do typed damage. The Weather Mobile is the real kicker. A giant metal bathtub-like thing, Weather could attach it to an industrial fan to create, to my knowledge, the only mount in Don't Starve Together that would fly. Now, I'm well aware that there's not really anywhere to fly to on the flat plane of the Don't Starve Together game. A more ambitious modder might commit to making a whole separate aerial or lunar plane in a similar manner to the caves to justify this choice. Today, I am not that modder. Instead, I imagine this as something of a super beefalo. It would have a battery, which needs to be recharged, like WX-78 or one of Winona's machines, and Weather's main access to recharging it in solo mode would be getting struck by lightning while on board. But it would have the speed of a rider beefalo with no saddle, and it would be able to fly over the ocean and cracks in the continent. This would be a huge boon to travel, so I don't know what kind of crafting cost could offset this benefit, but as someone who loves to travel fast and is garbage at the sailing mechanics in this game, oh my god, this thing would be a lifesaver. It could even have its own tiny little 3-slot inventory to help you carry things back and forth. Just don't get yourself stuck on Moonquay Island without a kite. And if it's still overpowered, it could have another drawback. Maybe it could constantly summon bad weather around it as long as it's powered on. Leave it on in the spring, frog rain. Leave it on in the summer, sandstorm. Maybe it fully doesn't even turn on in the winter, the cogs freeze and you can't get it going. I don't know, there's lots of options. When Weather comes out of this electrified state by being put to sleep or his enlightenment reaching 0, he takes a quick, involuntary nap, so don't do this during combat, and then his stat pool reverts to 0 sanity. I really like this little guy. I think there's so much more that I could do with him. It was really fun to think of gimmicks and mechanics and to try to draw in the so simple but incredibly hard to replicate Don't Starve Together style. And I think there's still a lot of potential, but I didn't feel like drawing new items forever. So please let me know in the comments, what would you do with him? Is he not strong enough to be worth playing? Is he completely overpowered? Do you have a great idea for more gimmicks or items or changes to the ones that I've proposed? And what do you think his stat pool should be? Because I am not really like a stats kind of person, so I kind of just ignored that for now. Please leave any answers or recommendations that you might have in the comments section. Hit like and subscribe if you want to see more of these character videos from me, because I do have more ideas. And either way, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!